The first myth is that men's skin needs different products than women's skin. The reality is that skin is skin, and the differences in skin is mostly based on someone's lifestyle, not necessarily their gender. Men's skincare mostly centers around shaving issues like skin irritation, razor bumps, things of that nature. And then men also typically use fewer products than women. And because of the shaving and just hormones in general, men's T-zones usually have a bit more oil in them than women's. But that doesn't mean that we need to have men's makeup. We all can benefit from a little bit more hyaluronic acid in our routines. Hyaluronic acid. If men just use a mattifying primer as their base, especially in their T-zone area, they don't necessarily need to have a men's product that does that. And also, if your T-zone is oily, you could really benefit from choosing a foundation that is matte or like a semi-matte finish to help control the oils throughout your day. Or if you're only wearing concealer, conceal your T-zone with a matte concealer. Probably not a high coverage matte concealer because then that would get really heavy and really cakey. And then you can go in with like your luminescent dewy BB cream, CC cream, foundation, whatever you use on the rest of your face. And then throughout the day, just like touching up with powders, making sure you're using like a translucent or a colored powder depending on your skin tone, and really making sure that you're keeping that T-zone in check. And this also comes down to marketing, right? Marketing exists in such a binary. Women's products and men's products. And there's no real like marketing out there for like the gray area. And that's the way it's been for decades. That just raises a bit of questioning for those of us who have a bit more forward thinking. The idea of inclusive marketing could alienate their customer base. Here's the thing, why do we want bigots buying our products in the first place? If you can't handle a man wearing makeup, if you can't handle someone who's like genderqueer or gender non-binary, you don't need to be buying from me. You don't need to be a part of the company, boo. You don't need to support. Trust, we don't need you to olive. But I guess you could argue that there is uncertainty about looking performative and gender inclusive and sexuality inclusive and sex inclusive marketing. But at the same time, if you're putting the time, effort, energy, and money into hearing from those groups and learning from those groups and getting the perspective of those groups, it won't be performative. Here's the next myth. You can determine someone's undertones by looking at their vein color. I would like you all to look at this skin and determine what my undertone is by my veins. If that was the case, you would think I was like a vampire or something, like I lacked vein. That is so stupid. It does nothing but perpetuate European beauty standards and alienate the Black buyer and the Indian buyer and the Eastern Asian buyer. But I think that's kind of the point. Better methods include identifying how gold versus silver jewelry looks on you and putting like white fabric or something, or a white sheet of paper or something against you, and seeing how your skin, does it look rosier, does it look golder, does it look more amber, does it look more olive against the white. Silver jewelry would be more for the girls with like and the guys and everyone. Girls is gender neutral. If guys can be gender neutral, girls is gender neutral. For the girls who wear silver jewelry a lot, usually more cool toned. The girls who wear gold jewelry are more warm toned. But then if you can like kind of get away with both, you're neutral. Your lips can also kind of help determine what color story you're in. So if your lips fall more to like a berry or a mauve, you're cooler. But if your lips are a bit rosier, you're more warmer. And if all else fails, go to a makeup counter and ask professionals what color you are. Try to aim for someone either that has makeup that impresses you or has a skin tone that's similar to yours. The girls who know, they will have you looking casket ready if you let them. Take some samples and go into the natural light and find out what your color really is. You don't need to be out here looking crazy. The next myth is that with warm undertones, you should only use warm colors. I cannot believe how many people's creativity has been stifled by the belief that they cannot use certain undertones. That limits your creativity so much. There are so many interesting and cool ways you can use the like opposite undertone to add contrast or depth or something really interesting to your face. It's about saturation and depth more than it is like the temperature or undertone when it comes to like mixing them. So you can use the cool tones as accents. You can do like a really fun, cool toned eyeshadow look if you're someone who's like really warm, or if you're someone who's really cool, go for like a really bold, warm eyeshadow. Really have that be the contrast. So the biggest piece of advice I can give you for this myth is to not limit yourself. Go for it. The next myth is that expensive brushes always perform better. That is such a lie. It's a facet of capitalism that like expensive becomes synonymous with quality is not necessarily the case. The truth is that brush density and shape matter way more than the price or brand. I think this entire face that I've done was done with drugstore brushes. You do not need to be paying out the wazoo for brushes. So I look pretty good. She looks pretty good, okay? Dense brushes, especially if you're like a full coverage girly, are super, super, super essential. And those loose density brushes, I use Wet n Wild e.l.f. brushes all the time for my eyeshadow. Or even Michael's paint brushes. Those work really well too. You just need something with a bit of a looser density. It's all about shape with eyeshadow. Do you want to pack on more color? Do you want this to like blend out? Do you need that sharp angular line? The shape and the density of the brush matters way more than how much you pay for it. Learning how to use a cheaper brush, a more frugal, more budget brush, when you get your hands on the expensive brushes, you are going to be able to paint the house down boot rather than buying the expensive brush and expecting it kind of to do the work for you, then being like, oh my God, my makeup looks like shit. Well, yeah, you don't have like the right application techniques. The most pro tip I can give you about brushes, clean your brushes. Okay, the reason your makeup looks horrible is because you haven't cleaned your brush in like 2 months. And you use it every day. But if you do want to get started and you want more makeup tips, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. It would mean a lot to me, friend. Thank you so much. The next myth is that your primer should always match your foundation base. So if you're using a mattifying primer, you should use a mattifying foundation. If you're using a hydrating primer, you should have a dewy foundation. Like we were saying earlier, some people with the oily T-zones, you need a mattifying primer in those T-zones, but you can still use your dewy foundation. Makeup is such an act of creativity. Stop limiting yourself or stop thinking that they're like hard and fast rules of beauty. Experiment, try new things. There's also the belief that if I'm using a silicone foundation, that I have to use a silicone primer. When it comes to mixing silicone and water, when it comes to your foundations and primers, you really just have to be able to have patience. You have to let the primer dry before applying your foundation if you want to prevent pilling. If you want to make sure that the items work together, you can go ahead and put them on the back of your hand and mix them. And if you get pilling, then you kind of know that you shouldn't put that on your face. Silicone primers and water-based primer and water-based foundations absolutely can go together and vice versa. The next myth is that orange concealer is the perfect color corrector for dark skin. There is this belief that every person after a certain skin tone just has the same undertone or has the same kind of like depth or richness to their skin, when that is so far from the truth. The same variance in skin tone that we have with the pale girlies and the lighter skin tones is the same variance of color that we have in the darker skin tones. And that is such an untapped part of the market that I don't know why anyone hasn't jumped on it, but maybe I'm supposed to. If you're a darker skin tone, you can use a peach or a salmon or a coral or even like a purple color corrector to balance out discoloration or acne scarring or just general hyperpigmentation in parts of your face. That belief that an orange color corrector kind of works for everyone can make your discoloration a bit more obvious, because it'll just be like a weird patch of color on your face and people will be like, what's going on? Is that a birthmark? Like what's she got going on? Really invest in like finding out the color and the undertone of your skin, because it's going to take your makeup to the next level of knowing, oh yeah, this is like the color story of my skin. I'm really, really cool. I'm really, really warm. Like I can play within this warmth, but then knowing that being able to play within the warmth of my skin, I can also use cool tones as a way to accent my skin and make it pop even more. When it comes to trying things new, also think about layering products, right? If you have a part of your skin that has acne scarring and has discoloration and has hyperpigmentation, think about layering colors. Think about layering different concealer colors on top of it to get like a custom shade that covers everything that you're looking for it to cover. Instead of just thinking this one product, this one color, this one corrector is supposed to do all of this heavy lifting, when you can use thin layers of multiple products to kind of give you the finish that you're looking for. The next myth that a lot of dark skin people hear a lot is that if you want to contour, just use the darkest shade. I cannot tell you how many people walk around with the muddiest, crazy looking faces because they believe that because they are dark or deep dark, they need to find the darkest shade that the brand offers and just swipe that across their face. Some people don't really need to contour, they need to focus more on like bronzing their skin. Even the advice to go like 2 or 3 shades darker can leave you looking muddy and crazy. I know that was really popular during the 2010s when everybody was contoured down the house boots, but it's not that time anymore and people are into like a more like natural flawless look. And to get that, you can't really go crazy with the different colors on your face. You have to kind of like stay in the same depth rather than the white and brown. You know, you need to play more in the family. This is not Alabama though. Do not play in the family like that. The next myth is that flash photography always causes a white cast. The reality is that it's usually your setting powder or the SPF that you've used that is causing flashback in your photograph. The T is translucent powders are not translucent. Translucent powders often have these like white particles or like colorless particles in them that on deeper skin tones kind of give you that like ashy, bye ashy, that like ashy look. Flash photography is very exposing. It reveals your true colors. The white particles and the colorless particles sitting on top of your skin, especially like under your eye, is why you look like ashed out of your mind. If you're a deeper skin tone, you need to look into more like olive setting powders, banana powders. Don't go crazy with the banana powders though, because the girls love to go crazy. Those warm tone powders and those like colored powders, not colored, are gonna maintain their color integrity under the flash and under the lights better than a translucent powder would. You can use translucent powder, use it sparingly, use it smartly. Don't be out here baking. First of all, don't be baking, period. But don't bake with translucent powder. The final myth is that natural makeup means you need to use less product. In reality, natural looks often require more technique and more product and more layering to get that like no makeup look, especially on deeper skin tones. It's about choosing the right undertone and the right finishes for your skin, not necessarily using less coverage. Your skin has so many different colors running through it. Obviously, your skin is not a flat surface, so it's getting light and receiving light at all times at different things. So there are parts of your skin that are darker, that are lighter. There are parts of your skin that you sleep on and have like more texture on it. There are parts of the skin that you shave and has more texture on it. For it to be a natural makeup look, you can't just have like one flat color. Especially under your eyes and around your nose, you're probably gonna use a lot of product there to get like the right balance of coloring. And especially if you're gonna be wearing natural makeup throughout the day, you're gonna need a hell of a lot of setting powder and a hell of a lot of setting spray. No, setting spray, yes. Setting spray. Actually, the no makeup can be some of the most technically challenging makeup to do because you don't have like a bold eye or a bold lip to kind of like rely on. It really is just like skin. And you have to be like so hyper focused on the skin. It's not something that you can say like, okay, I wanna do a cut crease on you, smoky eye on you, where it's kind of like paint by numbers almost. You really have to be hyper focused and super attentive to the skin that's in front of you because it's not going to be like anyone else's skin because everyone's skin is obviously unique. All in all, these myths persist because media, culture, period, civilization has geared and shifted towards the prioritization of lighter skin tones and European beauty standards. That's the end-all be-all of beauty, leaving so many darker skinned people and people who fall within the cracks of different like gender identities or gender expressions to kind of like fall to the wayside when it comes to beauty. But I want you all to know that there is a place for you and that you don't have to buy into these myths and that you should use your makeup and your beauty as a way to express yourself, to transform yourself into the best version of yourself that you can be. All right, friend, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. You can watch one of my other videos or subscribe to the channel. And if no one else has told you this today, I believe in you and I know that your dreams are gonna come true. All right, friend, until next time, bye.